Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Renee Garrett, and I'm your Speech Therapy PD podcast host for Brainstorms, Functional Neuro Rehab for SLPs. Before we get started, we have a few items to alert you to. Each episode is 60 minutes and will be offered for zero point 0.1 ASHA CEU. If you're joining us for this live episode and your state license requires live CEUs, be sure to complete all course modules, including the one that says complete course, by the end of the day on your Speech Therapy PD account. Here are the financial and non-financial disclosures. Julie Fechter is a full-time paid employee of an undisclosed entity. Her non-financial disclosure is that she has no relevant non-financial relationships. I am the owner and founder of BrainBridge Connect, and as the host of Brainstorms, Functional Neuro Rehab for SLPs, and other webinars on Speech Therapy PD, I do receive financial compensation. My non-financial disclosure is that I'm the secretary for the Communication Disorders Foundation of Virginia. Questions can be written in the chat box or the Q&A and will be answered throughout the presentation. Now we welcome our guest, Julie A. Fechter, MS CCC-SLP, who is an adult medical SLP with 15 years of experience across nearly every setting imaginable. Specializing in Parkinson's disease in her home health clinical practice, Julie was recently diagnosed with Sjogren's disease. She participated in a clinical trial which greatly deepened her understanding of being a patient. Julie's spoken at state speech conventions in California and Louisiana, as well as for the APDA Northwest. She spends time outside of work traveling over 60 countries, baking, arguing about politics, and moderating speech Facebook groups. Welcome, Julie. So great to see you.
Nice to see you too. Hello, everybody.
60 countries, man, that's quite a passport.
Yeah, unfortunately, my passport was stolen in Serbia, and so I don't have all those stamps. So it's a little.
Oh,
I was like, if anyone ever finds it in Serbia, please send it to me because I lost
oh,
all of them.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unfortunate. I'll leave it at that. So we're kicking off season 3. So I want to just get started with kind of talking about how you came to the SLP world. I think a lot of us have some pretty um, unique pathways. Like I'm a second career professional, so for me it's a little bit different. A lot of our guests are like, "Oh, I knew when I was 12," or "My mom was an SLP," or something along those lines. So tell us how you came to this SLP world.
Well, when I was, and this story is, uh, sorry, uh, my great aunt just died. I'm sorry. So my mom just texted me about it. Sorry. But what happened when I was little, my brother had a brain tumor when I was
Oh.
3. Yeah, and so that actually didn't inspire me to become an SLP. But I always wanted to be a doctor. And when I got to school, I got really depressed, which I actually think was my Sjogren's kind of manifesting with like my fatigue, not able to get out of bed, things like that. And I was going to be a book editor. And then I found out that's really boring, but also could have been my Sjogren's because every time I spend a lot of time looking at the computer screen, my eyes get really dry and I can't see anymore. So, yeah. Anyway, and my sister was like, you should become a speech therapist. So it's like the medical side of editing language, kind of. So, yeah. And so it actually really got me back to my desire to be I wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. I don't know. Yeah, I know, right? Like, what kind of little kid wants to work with kids with cancer? But that's what my brother got, and he survived to annoy me quite a lot.
I'm so glad you found a sense of humor because this is going to be so much fun to talk. Yeah, my
Yep.
son, when he was 6, he would introduce himself, and when people would say, "What do you want to be?" He'd say the president of the United States, and now he's like, "Absolutely not." So,
Well, oh man, you just opened a can of worms. I'm gonna close off right there.
I know, I know who you are. So let's kind of jump into things, and you did share that you've been diagnosed with Sjogren's, and so um, for me, I think working in acute care and having outpatient modified barium swallow patients come in quite like every week. That's tended to be where I saw the bulk of patients with Sjogren's who were coming in for swallowing issues and things like that. So can you kind of describe for us what were you experiencing that kind of led to this diagnosis?
Okay, so, and then I have to get to be a little embarrassed because I would always tell my patients, I mean, I have trouble swallowing pills and I don't have any trouble swallowing. So it's all, and then, a year, 2, 3 later, I was like, but mine actually didn't come from trouble swallowing. I was experiencing stiffness and I had sharp pains, like someone was, I'm flipping everybody off. Sorry, guys. Let's keep that together. And I had sharp pains right here. And I was literally in a session with a patient and I go, oh, ouch. Oh, excuse my non-language. I go, oh, that hurt really bad. And the patient had RA. And so she literally is sitting there, her hands are like this. And she looks at me and she goes, that's how it starts. And I was like, huh? So yeah, and so I went to the doctor and we got my hands x-rayed and all this kind of stuff. And she did an SSA or an SSB, which is Sjogren's antibodies. Don't ask me what SSA and B stand for. And I have one of them, which is important because you have to have that in order to do a clinical trial. But anyway, so yeah, and then I went to rheumatologist and and this is where I actually really want to she was like, well, I mean, you were just sick. Your antibodies must have been raised because of blah, 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 and you're fine. And I was like, I mean, literally, I'm sitting here every morning with these stiff hands that don't work. And then I found myself saying that to one of my friends who was going through something. COVID triggered something autoimmune in her. Sorry to mention this, but I'm sure she's not going to watch this. And I was like, oh, well, I hope nothing's wrong with you. And I was like, hold on. I take that back. If you have all these symptoms, I hope something's wrong with you. Like I don't
Yeah.
hope, I don't hope that it's negative. I hope that you have something wrong so you can figure out how to treat it. And that's what I wanted but unfortunately there's no drugs for Sjogren's. So yeah,
Yeah, I
that's,
know. I had a big medical thing a couple years ago. It's been almost 2 years now, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath of the weird things that pop up in my blood work. And it's like no one they keep saying, well, we know what it's not, but they don't know what it is. And so I'm like, thanks, that's not helpful. I mean, it's helpful, but it's not helpful all at the same time. So I totally understand what you're saying because not having something diagnosed when you know there's something weird
mhm.
is not a fun place to be. It's more like you get all this worry and doubt and yeah, it can, if you're not a balanced person, which well, are we all? I don't know.
We don't
In
want
this
to
day
talk
and
about
age,
that
are we?
today.
Yeah, let's not do that either.
Well, and the thing too and I mean, we're talking about dysautonomia, right? Dysautonomia is really weird and it causes a lot of weird symptoms. Like, I would hiccup in class and I got in trouble for that. Or like in grad school, I'd hiccup really loudly and one of my professors would be like, "Ooh." And like, it's literally, that's part of dysautonomia. And so I
Mhm.
also got in trouble in grad school. I'm not going to name any names. It was the worst time of my life except for maybe right now, I don't know. But I got in trouble for yawning, and yawning is a part of dysautonomia because your breathing is off. And
Yeah.
so it's like there's all these weird things that popped up that how can you connect hiccuping, yawning, my migraines, weird temperature, blah, 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 blah. You just know something's wrong, but you don't know what. And it's so random that like I didn't put this together until literally last year. Yeah, because it's so weird. It's weird.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, what I think we learn probably in grad school, or like even I've heard from different patients, particularly like our brain injured patients, like witnessing it, is not only do they have issues that like you're describing, but the thing for us with a TBI patient is usually something like blood pressure and heart rate are off. And those are the kind of symptoms we see with that patient population. But then other symptoms, I've heard people say like fainting, like out of the blue, just passing out, and there's no like rhyme or reason to that. What about things like any brain fog, fatigue?
Fatigue, and I'll tell you, my first Sjogren's patient after I got diagnosed, she said to me, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly how I felt. She was like, I always just thought I was lazy. And I was like, and so all the times of my life where I've just been lazy, like, yeah, it's been that I've been fatigued, but brain fog, I don't think affects me as much as other people. I don't know. And this is going to sound really stupid, but like I have a really fast brain. It's like a family thing. We're just very fast processors. So maybe my brain slowed a little bit, but I did notice attention has been one of the ones. And I mean, obviously that's like the first thing, right? To get kind of affected by things, in my opinion. And for me, attention would probably be the one, or like I'll say the wrong word and I think that's attention personally, when you're just not really thinking and it just kind of pops up. So brain fog for me is not really a big problem, but I'm on a lot of Sjogren's things and a lot of dysautonomia subreddits and stuff like that, and a lot of people have the cognitive issues, and I'm the one going in and being like, speech therapist here, let me tell you, these are some options, or like try and direct others because it's hard to go through it on your own.
Well, and the other thing I think I've heard a lot of people say is problems with bowel function or like digestive issues, anything like that that you can speak on.
I mean, are we talking? I mean, I believe you know how much I love talking about poop. Like, I'm pretty sure you know how much I love talking about poo. My name tag is normalized poo with the poo chart. And we always thought I had like IBS.
Yeah.
But some people, and a lot of these things don't happen to me, which is really nice, but I see it in my patients and in all these people in the different groups. But they'll almost pass out when they need to poo. Like they'll like start sweating, start just shaking, all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't happen to me, but we just thought I had IBS. But now I eat a lot of fiber and my life is a lot better. But if you think about like patient populations, like Parkinson's,
Yeah.
you walk in, you see a thing of Miralax this big, you know where you're at. And that's because of dysautonomia. Well, and dehydration and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, but that goes hand in hand. And, you see, uh, a lot of our Parkinson's patients too will have pretty significant reflux. And so I think, for the dysautonomia piece, that can be part of it too. And again, we're looking at all these symptoms and sleeping problems. We mentioned trouble swallowing, headaches, that kind of thing. Those are often so non-specific when you go to the doctor. If you've ever been anybody listening has been a patient, you go in and you say, oh, I've had headaches and, I felt like my heart was off, or, I'm having issues with my bowel movements or whatever, but I also have a headache. And they're like, oh, great. What?
well, and I have two things about that. You just opened up a bunch of stuff. When I was younger, I went to the doctor. I went to BYU for my undergrad, and I go in and I had a very large Diet Coke because I love me some diet soda, and it made my blood pressure a little high. So I'm going in about these migraines I've had for 5 years, and migraines are also a part of dysautonomia and Sjogren's. And the doctor just goes, hey, you're fat, your blood pressure's a little high, you eat a high processed diet, you have a high salt intake, you need to lower your salt intake. And like, he didn't ask what I ate. And of course, I did eat garbage. Let's be honest here. I was in college and I was fat and my blood pressure was mildly raised, but my blood pressure is usually 60/40. And that's part of the dysautonomia. That's a lie. It's only been that a couple times. But I have really low blood pressure. And here this doctor comes in and I have migraines. I get full on migraines. I only can have them go away with my migraine meds. And this doctor was just like, little fatty over there, have high blood pressure, you need to do this. And it ended up being just that's what happened to me once. Like that's just what doctors can do. So
Well, and I think it really speaks to, again, that pattern of symptoms that if it's a medical professional who maybe isn't versed right? A lot of SLPs are not versed or don't know about dysautonomia, especially if
Mhm.
they haven't worked with Parkinson's or they haven't worked with patients with TBI. They really may not know a lot about it. It's one of those things. It's like a little blurb in graduate school, and I can't
And
remember
it's
everything we learned there. That was a lot of stuff.
no. Well, and it's such, I mean, it's literally in almost every single disease. Like, so
Yeah.
how do we not know about this? How do we not know that these symptoms, like, yeah, but it's just kind of crazy to me because it's such a big part of what I think about now because I walk into a concussion patient and I'm just like, hey, let's talk about these certain things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
does this happen? This? And they're like, are you a genius? And I'm like, well, yes, actually.
Well,
But
even thing like, you mentioned your eyes, blurred vision's part of it. Another one that I think is a big one is that exercise intolerance, right? So a lot of times people's heart rates don't do what they should do in response to your movement pattern, and that can also be, um, one of those things it's a marker for it, but people often again don't relate that back because they just don't know. And not knowing is not an excuse by any stretch. That's not what I mean. I think it's hard for people to connect all the dots, if you
un-
will.
until you learn about it and you like see all these different things and just think about the autonomic system, like why would your mind be connecting hiccups and yawning and weird sweating sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
But I will say, I personally don't have any tachycardia. But POTS, right, which is a
Yeah.
form of dysautonomia. Yeah, so like I can exercise just fine. I just hate it.
That was me today. I was like, I'm going to start my new 6-week workout plan today. And then I was working from home and I was like, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to go. At least I ate my apple. I ate my apple as a snack and
Hmm.
kept it moving after that. Some
Yeah.
days it's just not in the cards, right? It's just not.
No. And like with me, with some, my chronic illness that affects every single part of my body at all times, I use that as an excuse sometimes. But I had to go to PT today. I had physical therapy because my body is not loving me. So, and that's just part of what this is. So, one of the questions that you had brought up was what are some considerations to think about with these people as to getting like therapy done? Sorry, I didn't mean to like take that, but I really liked that
Oh, you're
question. And
good.
part of it is like the huge amount of things that I'm supposed to do every day. I wake up, I take like 9 pills. I have my PT, I have my OT, I have my RMST, I have all these kinds of things. And it's like, there's just a lot. So that's one of the things I thought about when you said that. It's just, there's so much we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and then you have to like have a like live your actual life. Go to work. That's always a treasure and a treat.
Oh, very much a treat today. Very much a treat today.
Well, and thinking about, just daily life, and I know that you have a dog, and that's a big part of your, he's your companion, a big
He's
part of
actually
your
not my dog. He's my
what? His
he's my friend's dog. She lets me steal him. He's my stepdog.
Oh my gosh! All this time I thought it was your dog. Well, it's sort of your dog. It's your dog on social media. So, but I mean, even things like, walking the dog or just, going downstairs, for example, those are things that, again, if you're impaired with balance, if you're impaired with your movement because you're stiff and sore and maybe not having the best day, that impacts everything for you, right? So, what about just like, thinking about you're talking about like going to PT and OT and having to have all these like steps in your day, but thinking about regular stuff, like going to the grocery store, for example.
Hmm.
If you have, we're working professionals, so we have to like fit all these tasks in when we're not at work and when we're not doing other things. So how does that impact your day if you've sort of been like, okay, tomorrow's Tuesday, I know I'm going to go to the grocery store, and then you wake up and you feel like crap, and it's not in the cards for you that day, how does that impact like how you function from day to day?
I, s- uh, and this is probably not the best way to go about it, but like when I'm feeling good, I try and do as much as I can. I don't
Okay.
pace myself very well, which I'm sure is not great. But like, I'll be honest, my function isn't to the point where I can't manage those kinds of things. And
Hmm.
for me, like I live, in Seattle and I get to walk to the grocery store. And so for me, even just walking to the grocery store is a little exercise. And so, yeah, I mean, it's more, maybe it is fatigue and because your mental health gets affected as well with the autoimmune disease or even dysautonomia. Um, if you think about it's the vagus nerve, right? And what is the vagus nerve? That's the emotions, right?
Hmm.
And like fight or flight. And I do think it just makes me anxious and depressed. And
Hmm.
so that's a big part. It's not even like my physical thing of wanting to go. It's like, I don't want. So I don't know.
Well, I think I mean, it's part of the process. And I think it's important again for people to hear that because when we're dealing with um, something like that, you're dealing with that yourself, but then how does that help you when you're relating to patients? Because it does change your perspective quite a bit.
It has made me by far a better clinician. And it's not even just this too, but I went through a bunch of surgeries, not for Sjogren's, and like I had to be completely dependent on Mexican nurses because I had surgery in Mexico and I speak Spanish. It was incredible, but I literally was stuck in a bed and I couldn't even move my butt to fart. I'm just going to say that. Like that's how impaired I was. Yeah, like literally they moved my butt and I farted in their faces. Probably not something I should tell everyone, but I don't care. Um, and so it's really given me so much more compassion and understanding for
Hmm.
my patients because like I have to go and do all these different things too. I have my exercises. And so it's helped me kind of talk to them and I feel in a way that and my patients all know that I also have that I have Sjogren's, not also, because it kind of makes them go, oh, Julie
Hmm.
knows what it's like to be a patient. And I talk about the dysautonomia, and it's funny that you mentioned the balance thing because for PT and OT, had to go in and they ask, how many times have you fallen in the last year? And I know that's for 70-year-olds. And I'm like pulling up my jeans and I'm like, do you want to see my knee where I fell last year? Do you want to see my knee where I fell in 2018? How about and yeah, so it definitely does affect everything.
Yeah, and I think again, it really does help you um, be more real because, a lot of times we get this complex or not us but some people get this complex of perfection. There's a lot of perfectionism in our field of I have to be perfect and my patients have to think I'm perfect, and I've said this on the podcast before, but when I was in grad school I had a patient I was working with that I was doing my thesis project on, and a lot of times the brokenness that she came in with really I felt it, I felt it so deeply for her because of what her situation was. And there was a time when I was in the therapy room with her, and I cried. And um, one of the clinical supervisors was like, "Don't ever cry in front of your patient." And I thought, well, that's so unhuman. What do you mean? Like I felt so empathetic for her situation that I've never forgotten that, but I've also realized too, because I'm like you, now I'm of an age where I just don't care. And so if someone needs that empathetic space, we have that relationship with our patients and their caregivers a lot of times where they do come in and they share these things that are very personal, they're very real, they're very much about their function from day to day. And oftentimes the stories aren't pretty, They need a safe place to land, if you will, and they need a safe place to be able to tell their truth and share that. And it's not always bells, whistles, and pretty party mix. And
Well,
again, I think, having some life experience, I think it really does, it really impacts how you're able to relate. Um, but, thinking about just your therapy performance, you mentioned you're doing PT and OT. How's that been impacted, your therapy performance and participation?
it's fine. I don't know. It's really hard when you're in pain like daily, and that's what I'm going for, is to like not be in pain anymore. And so I'm very
Yeah.
motivated to do it. And so it's actually, I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm a good patient. Let me get my perfectionism out, right? And so I don't know. I feel pretty lucky because my dysautonomia that I experience is like I get hypoglycemia, which can really knock me out. But I get weird sweating. I have the weird hiccups, the weird yawning, but I don't get the very, very bad kinds that I've heard about. And like, I mean, I just had a patient who had to go hospice because of orthostatic issues from COVID. And like he fell and hit his head multiple times. And that kind of thing, luckily, doesn't happen to me. And so I feel kind of guilty being on here, being like, well, it's not really that bad. But like, it's not that severe that it truly, truly impairs me mostly. That's more the Sjogren's, to be honest. But dysautonomia is just weird. Like it just causes like the hypoglycemia is probably the one of the weirdest ones. I went through all of this kind of stuff with an endocrinologist, and people were like, well, if you have low blood sugar, you have diabetes. And I was like, that's the opposite of what diabetes is. Just saying. Like people just want to say things.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Which is why I thought this was a really important topic to talk about because, um, you know, we see, like I said, we see a lot of different types of disorders, but what are some things you mentioned Parkinson's, I mentioned TBI. Is there any other disorder or disease that we see a lot of patients with where you might see these symptoms occurring?
Diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Diabetes is the number one cause of dysautonomia. Sjogren's is number two. I'm kind of surprised Parkinson's isn't up there because I don't know if I've ever met a single patient with Parkinson's without dysautonomia. I
Right.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's just like not measured as well. But what I think is interesting, and we're talking about TBIs, and I went to a concussion talk at the Dysautonomia International conference a couple years ago, and every single person with concussion will have dysautonomia for at least the first month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I think about all the time because concussions, like I get patients who go to the doctor and they're like, oh yeah, I hit my head and everything's normal. I'm like, is it though? Let me just check and look at that heart rate. It is 55. It is 4. Oh, okay. So I think knowing the concussion TBIs, I mean, all of the degenerative diseases have
Yeah.
this, all of them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's, and I'm trying to think. I think the diabetes one is the one that I think about the most because almost all of my patients have diabetes. I swear. I mean, there's a lot of diabetes, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that one's the really important one, especially because diabetes is. I mean, we all know that it just kind of goes for the whole body.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's, you start getting the peripheral vascular disease and that numbness, in the fingers and toes and feet eventually and falling. Um, I talked about my in-laws quite a bit on the podcast, and my mother-in-law had, well, we always say she's like the worst diabetic because she hid her sweets in the oven.
Oh,
But, she had all those things. She had the falls, she had hearing loss. She had eventually had a diagnosis of dementia. And so, yeah, she had a lot of those things that her PCP kind of discounted as
yep.
just part of the process, but they never called it what it was as a result of the diabetes. And I think we have that responsibility because it's confusing to the patient when they're going in and they're like, I have this symptom, I have this symptom, I have this symptom. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's the diabetes. But they're not saying it's dysautonomia because of the diabetes or
Yes.
You've had so many hyperglycemic and hypoglycemic events because, you know, when they're teaching patients with diabetes, when they're being taught how to manage those times when they are hypoglycemic, they don't always recall that it's one of the things that you should do. It's orange juice or peanut butter or graham crackers. It's not all of them. And what do they mostly do? They do all three, and then their blood sugar's 500, and they're like, what the heck happened? Right? But again, that's the more frequency or the more frequent that happens, the more symptoms they tend to have of dysautonomia because the disease is worsening and progressing. And that's the piece I think for a lot of SLPs and even other, I love nurses, but sometimes the nurses don't get a good, depending on what they focused on in their schooling, they don't get a good basis for this either. How many physicians have you worked with who I don't even know if they knew what the word was because their neuro class is so, if they even have a neuro class, it's so short if they do. And they have so many other things they have to know and learn that if they're not neurologists or they're not working with stroke patients or they're not internal med or, working in ICU, they may not know. They may not remember or they may not be familiar with this. Has that also been your experience?
Yeah, I hello computer, don't be weird. Am I still there?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, hold on. My computer went away. I actually, hold on, noticed recently that multiple doctors have mentioned dysautonomia. And I was like, what? Like in the notes?
When?
Like, yeah. And so hopefully it's kind of getting more, traction that people are aware because I have not seen it for people, or even like when I work with my Parkinson's patients, I explain you don't blink as much, you do this, you do that, even your constipation, it can be dysautonomia. And just like these light bulbs go off, and I'm like, have they talked to, or like the orthostatic issues that come with it, and we all know that they're going to have it, but do they necessarily know why?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I've just started telling people like, well, your nervous system is out of whack. And that to me kind of is a nice way to put it because it just says all these weird things are going on. Um, but I forgot what I was talking about. I got distracted. You looked frozen and I totally just boop. Maybe that's attention. That's my brain fog. Squirrel.
It could be. Well, and one of the things too that I wanted to kind of circle back to when we're thinking about our patients with um, diabetes and other this is a hard word, neurodegenerative diseases, when we're thinking about nutrition, and I know that we're not nutritionists, we're not dietitians, we're not um, schooled. So, as far as our practice does somewhat include that though, because we are working with patients with swallowing disorders and we're working with patients who've had a stroke, and we talk to them about things that they can do that are preventable measures they can take that help prevent a stroke. So
Mhm.
things like diet. Have you had the experience of needing to do like smaller frequent meals or anything like gluten free? Have you found that there are things that are inflammatory for you when you're eating?
Oh, well, for me personally, probably sugar. I can feel that, and I love sugar. I love to bake. If you follow my Instagram, like I love to bake. My whole kitchen is just, I could never do gluten free because it has gluten on every single part of my kitchen because I love baking. So that one is bad. Like the sugar, I can totally feel. For me, gluten is not a thing. Because, well, I would rather die than give up gluten. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not. I lean really heavy into whole grains. So I focus a lot on fiber to help with my GI issues.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I follow like some really hot GI doctor, and he talks a lot. He's so hot. Oh man. I can never find him. I think I set him to hard to swallow, being like, isn't he hot? And Will's like, But I follow a lot of things he says, and I actually tell my patients, well, maybe you should look this guy up or use some of his ideas because he talks about how to poop really great. And he's so hot. So
What about things like smaller meals or more frequent? Because I think, um, again, that's one of those things that I know this happens a lot with our Parkinson's folks. They get told to do those smaller, more frequent meals.
and for me, that I had bariatric surgery, so my stomach is this big anyway, so I have to do that. But not my problem, but when I think about people with Parkinson's and trying to recommend the small frequent meals, their whole life is trying to get in enough calories. And that's what it ends up being. And it's like this, the tightrope of trying to have your swallow be more efficient, but then your GI stuff is going on and you have probably gastroparesis, and then you're trying to anyway, I don't have to, I know I do have to do that, but that's bariatric connected.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that people are looking for is a cure, right? They're looking for something that's going to help make this better or make it go away even. And so, you mentioned medications. Is the medications more for symptom management?
Yep. Like, oh gosh, what is like midrodine, that's one of the meds that they can use, and they can use like propranolol to deal with like the tachycardia, I think, or beta blockers, whatever.
Yeah, beta
But
blockers.
yeah, for me, what actually helped my dysautonomia was the clinical trial I was in, because my dysautonomia is caused by Sjogren's. So you have to treat the Sjogren's in order to get the dysautonomia improved. But even that, I mean, I still have the weird hiccups. I had one earlier and I meant to call your attention to it, but I forgot.
I heard it. I wasn't going to
Ah,
call.
you should. You should be like, look at you right there. But yeah, so like the thing that, and okay, so my brother died a few years ago, 4 years now almost, and he died of, he had the best kind of heart attack, thanks doctors, and then an aortic dissection a couple weeks
Oh,
later. Yeah, he was gone. But I've always had these weird heartbeats, right? And so then when we were talking about what happened with my brother, my mom's like, "Oh yeah, well he was having this one heart thing and da 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 da," and I'm like, like Googling is that what was going on with my heart? And then I went to my clinical trial, and the rheumatologist, she was like the first person. I mean, I have another rheumatologist and they're fine, but she was the first person who I talked to, and she goes, "Oh, you have dysautonomia, so you must have those weird heartbeats." And I was like, am I not going to die at 45 like Craig? Like legitimately. And so it can even be like, holy mother of pearl, I don't have this. I mean, not that dysautonomia is not an intense thing and all this kind of
mhm.
stuff too, but my heart isn't going to burst and die. So it answers a lot of questions, I feel like.
Yeah.
But
And is there any, and this is just I'm thinking off the top of my head, is there any correlation? Like, do you have people in your family who also have this, or, is it considered to have a genetic component?
some of them, yeah, they do say, well, and this is going to sound whatever, but I'm also like Ashkenazi Jew, and Ashkenazi Jews tend to have more like GI autoimmune stuff. So that's something to kind of think about. Luckily, I mean, not luckily, but I don't know if that has an impact. I don't know, but my sister also has some autoimmune stuff, but we're not speaking currently. So I don't know what's going on with her. My mom was like, well, she has some of the same stuff as you. I was like, I don't care. But so my sister, and I think that's because what I personally think is we were probably predisposed to it. And then the stress of my brother's brain tumor, like you can't say that did not affect everything, because they were
Sure.
told he was going to die and all that stress in my family. And I mean, there's even stress now with him. And so my sister has that. My mom, we think, has Hashimoto's, and now she has like super, super dry eyes. And I'm sitting there like, because Sjogren's, it's stereotypical dry eyes, dry mouth,
Mm-hmm.
dry other places.
So like for your, when you're thinking about things like, again, impactful day, right? Dry eyes, that you mentioned that earlier. If you're, on the computer, you have to be for charting for work. How
Mhm.
does that impact that? Is it a barrier for you, or do you still, again, know how to manage it well so that you're not, having these issues with a dry eye? Because it's it's hard because it affects your visual field.
Vision.
Like it affects how you're
Mhm.
able to process your visual information. Do you have strategies for that? What are you doing with that?
Actually, I just cleaned out my fridge and I do not know where my cold eye drops went, but that feels real good. And I also have a couple of warm things to put on my eyes, but I don't like doing that because of my eyelashes, just to be very honest. So I'll do that or yeah, the cold eye drops I think are my favorite thing because they feel so good. And for the dry mouth, I will say, because we talk a lot, right?
Hmm.
And I usually have water with me, but I'm not as good about that right now. But there's a new lipid based. Have you heard of Aquaral?
Uh-huh.
I can't tell you how I got one, but I got one somehow magically. And oh my word, it was awesome. And so, but I don't know how to get my patients on it necessarily. And I'm like, but everyone should try this. It was great. And especially for our folks with Parkinson's with those dry mouths, MS dry mouths.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to say when you brought up strokes also have dysautonomia. That is also, there we go. I had to get that out there.
Yeah. Again, anything that happens to your brain has that potential um, to impact every other part of your body. It's why when I started teaching stroke ed when I was a new grad, um, with the neuropsychologist I work with, that was one of the things that we talked about, that, people think that your heart is sort of the center of everything, and when in actuality it's your brain. Your brain tells everybody else what to do and how to do it. And you think about all the things we do that we're not telling our body to do, that like you said, autonomic nervous system, or breathing, your heart's beating. All of that is impacted when you have something happen to your brain like a stroke or a TBI. We do have a question. So KK said, thank you for sharing your experiences to help us help others. I found a website. She's referring to the dysautonomiaproject.org. Do you have a website resource that you recommend for, I guess I'm assuming she means for, oh, you already typed it. Look at you, professional. I have
Told
to
you
get
my brain works best.
Yeah, and what about the Dysautonomia project? Is that also a
I've
one?
actually not heard of that. I'll probably take a look at that. I've looked at Dysautonomia International because the creator of that nonprofit has Sjogren's, and that's what made her kind of start it. And I went to their conference. I stopped following them, but that's a long story. But they're very helpful. They very much help me make the connections with what
You crack me up. I'm sorry. I'm laughing, but not at you. I'm just
I
laughing
know.
because you're just really funny. You have a
I
great
am
humor.
really funny. I know. But
Well, and I think
just
there's another website too. I think it's American Brain. Is it American Brain Foundation, maybe? And that's not necessarily just a dysautonomia resource, but they have a lot of good information about different things with the brain that's a little bit, I think, more user friendly if you're not familiar with a lot of these terms, or if you're not working with patients with neurodegenerative diseases, with patients with stroke, with Parkinson's, with TBI patients. I think it's just one of those websites that gives you good information without it being so heavily technical that you're reading and you're like, nope, I'm all done.
well,
I'm all
I
done with the smart people stuff.
Well, and I think for for dysautonomia, POTS, blah blah blah, I think like the subreddits are very informational because I mean, I don't know the statistics on what gender is affected more, because I mean, all genders get, strokes and blah, blah, blah. But with autoimmune stuff, it's a lot of women and people just kind of ignore these symptoms, blah, blah, blah. And I think our dysautonomia on Reddit is super helpful. I think because I don't know, I've gone past wanting to just learn from professionals, because I want to talk to the people who are experiencing this every day, every second of the day. Because, like at the Dysautonomia International Conference, there are literally teens who are in wheelchairs, and at all times they had to be, I can't even think of that word right now, supine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had to be like that the entire time. And like one of the teens fainted at the thing, and their little, that sounds diminutive, but a service dog is coming up to them. So for me, and the Dysautonomia conference is for professionals and patients,
Mm-hmm.
which I really liked because you got to meet other people. But I really want to learn from the people who are experiencing it all the time, because professionals, I just feel, don't really get it, how it's very random. It's very like, maybe I didn't sleep well enough, I'm gonna have weirder feelings, or I didn't get enough salt that day. And ironically, I have never had a salt shaker because my family has heart issues. My brother died at 45, and that could have helped me my whole life. I'm so mad because I've never put salt on my food. And
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I do salt my food as I'm cooking, but I never add it after. I'm like, that's what it is. That's what it's going to be. And salt is very, very helpful for people with dysautonomia because we can't hold on to liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's part of the problem, is like liquid imbalances in your body. And I personally, like, I drink something, I'm going to pee right away. And that's partly because my body does not hold on to it. So this whole time I could have been dousing my food in salt and living that great salty life. Just saying.
Who knew potato chips are not your enemy?
That's one of my binge foods. But then I'm like, well, maybe I was binging. And I mean, I just love binge eating, obviously. Well, no, I'm not obviously. I'm not fat, but I was. Okay. Maybe I was going for the chips to eat when I was dealing with some issues and I didn't even know it. Maybe my body is craving that salt
Mm-hmm.
to help. I don't know. You'll never know, I feel, with these kinds of things. That's how I kind of feel about it. We'll never know what is just me being weird and my body being like, give me salt.
Well, and I'm totally joking about the potato chip thing because I don't want anybody to come back and say that we were touting eating potato chips, because that wasn't the case. It was more about the salt, because I know that that's part of can be part of the treatment.
Mhm.
And it's funny because in a future episode, I have a dietitian friend who's going to come on, and we're going to talk about some of those things, like when you're craving something, typically it's because you're lacking. So like, for example, in the winter, I'm in Virginia, you're in Washington. I swear we've had Seattle weather here for a month, except that it's been like deathly cold, but it was like deathly cloudy for like a whole month.
Ugh.
Um, Funny story though, when I was in Seattle for ASHA, it was sunny and warmer there than it was here at home on the coast. So
You were there and you didn't say hi to me in person?
I
Just
didn't
saying. Okay.
I didn't see you anywhere. Do you know how many people were there? Oh my gosh. But yeah, back to the salt and stuff. The dietitian that I'm going to talk to, we're going to talk about how um your body typically will crave things. So like here, when I tend to take vitamin D in the winter because I'm not able to get the sunlight. But it's funny because I'll crave like fish,
Oh.
or something random that
Hmm.
doesn't make any sense. Because I think, most of us that are of biologically female, we tend to like sugar and salt when we have, those cravings that we have
Hmm.
sometimes. Um, but when it comes to a specific food, like there's times when like I'll be like, oh, Brussels sprouts sounds so good. And
Mm.
I've always liked Brussels sprouts, but the point is, it's like your body craves things because you've maybe have that nutritional need. It's not more of a want thing. It's more of like your body is wired biologically to tell you what it needs at times. And so that'll be an interesting topic because again, it all relates back to this concept of dysautonomia and all these things that we see with our patients when they, if you were, again, I'll go back to TBI because that's my specialty.
Mhm.
If you've ever worked with patients with TBI, a lot of them will have these impulsive behaviors, but a lot of them will have impulsive eating behaviors
Mhm.
or, like disinhibition when it comes to like shoving the food in their mouth and stuff like that. And a lot of that, again, relates back to this dysautonomia and their feelings of increased hunger and thirst. And they're trying to get it in because their body is telling them, I don't know how to regulate myself right now, but I
Mhm.
need you to shove this food in your face as fast as you can.
Well, and I have a very interesting story about that. I had a patient who she was Mexican and she was in a car accident. Unfortunately, her husband died right next to her. And I'm
Oh,
sitting there, I know it was really tragic. Oh my word. And I was just chatting with her and I was like, so I mean, if you want to, because she got a concussion and her taste had changed, her smell had changed, and that was really interesting. But her family, and this is a big Mexican family, they're all going, we are bringing over caldo de res, which is it's like beef soup and it's super salty. And all of her family brought over electrolytes. They just without because I was chatting with her saying, oh, maybe you want to get some electrolytes. She's like, my family already brought that over right there. And it was so cool because this cultural tradition, I mean, everyone eats soup when they're sick, right? But they literally just targeted this exact thing that would help her. It was one of the coolest things. It was just a natural cultural thing. And I mean,
mhm.
and she and I got to speak Spanish, so I was really excited. But it was so interesting because I opened up the topic of dysautonomia with her because of her concussion. And she's like, oh, I already got that taken care of. All these electrolytes. It was
That's
great.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. But it's kind of like with different cultures. Every culture has some sort of noodle and some sort of bread. They also mostly have some sort of version of like a chicken soup of some sort that their grandmother made them or their mom made them when they were sick. Every
Mhm.
culture has some sort of thing like that. You've got, the salt in the soup, you've got the hydration in the liquid part, you've got some sort of protein in there, you've got fiber in the vegetables and vitamins in the vegetables. So it is super interesting when you think of it, how that's been passed down from culture to culture, but also from generation to generation.
And it just so happens to target the thing that like every illness causes. It was
Wild, right?
it was so awesome because I was, I'm coming in and being like, me, my speech therapist, I'm getting this, duh, 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 and they already got that taken care of.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on like uh any behavior modifications? I know that that's one thing that has popped up in some of the research. I was looking at an article earlier from 2024 on um it's I'll probably say the name wrong. Peltier autonomic dysfunction from diagnosis to treatment. Um but they talk about some of the medications that can cause some pretty nasty side effects. Um, and so they talk more about some of the behavioral modifications that can be done.
I don't know exactly what you're referring to. Are you talking about like they recommend people start supine with exercise and then they graduate? And I'm not 100% sure about what behavioral modifications you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, please.
It sounds like it might be more about maybe like therapy type of things for, like you mentioned, the anxiety and depression. So behavioral modification. So it sounds like more like a therapeutic
Um,
thing for that. I'm trying to see if I can pull up this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, they'll tell you, I'm a big fan of breathing. And so if we, like, and I do a lot, well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. But like IMST, inspiratory muscle strength training, has been suggested as a way to help with dysautonomia. And it can help with your heart rate variability. It can improve that. So that's not really a behavioral modification. I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
I know, and it's not pulling up the whole article for whatever reason. I just had this pulled up earlier and I closed it out like a dummy. Hold on, let me see if it'll pull
You
up the
might
whole
have to
thing.
post it or send it because I think that's very interesting. And I mean, I think allied health has such a bigger role in every disease process than we currently have. I believe in preventative SLPing. And so I think we can learn about this and kind of implement it earlier in the disease process and help people understand what's going to come.
Yeah.
But I'm still not
I
really sure.
think I think this is actually talking about the management of POTS because they're talking a lot about
Ah,
orthostatic, um, how to manage that blood pressure and how to, sorry, I just saw where someone wants the name of the article. I'll see if I can get this to cite it so I can put that in there. But that's what it sounds like it's talking about. So I'm not sure what the behavioral modification part
well, I
is
mean,
either.
I went to I went to a whole day on dysautonomia for the Dysautonomia International Conference, and there was an OT there, and she was talking about some really great ways of modifying therapy stuff for
Mm-hmm.
people more with POTS, and it kind of was more focused on POTS because I think POTS seems like a little more severe, obviously, than what I go through.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just talking about watching your changes from sitting to standing, or even, oh my gosh, yesterday I got a really great rug a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. It's so great. So I spend most of my time on my rug now on the ground. And yesterday I was hanging out with my friend and I was lying down on my rug and then I immediately stood up and I almost passed out. And that's just something and that happened out of nowhere, but it was because I was lying flat on my really great fake rabbit fur. If anyone wants that link, I will send it. It is great. Best rug. It is so soft. But I was just lying down. I just stood up out of nowhere, just almost landed right back on the ground. And it just kind of, and then I was like, oh, I know exactly what I should have done. I should have been lying down. And then you have to gradually sit up and then you have to gradually stand up. So that's, I mean, if we're talking about behavioral modification,
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get it defined a little bit better.
yeah,
And I almost
because
wonder if they're talking about different things like we talked about with diet, nutrition, that kind of thing. Energy conservation, that's what they're talking about. Lifestyle adjustment. So it's the same stuff, but they're
oh,
calling it behavioral modification. Whereas I'm thinking behavior like psychology, they're thinking behavior like the energy conservation, the adjusting your
oh,
diet. Like you just mentioned, but good for you because you just mentioned this trigger avoidance. You also mentioned the physical therapy part of it, so you're getting that pacing, that physical conditioning that you need in order to help manage it. So that's what they're talking about.
yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of different, like it totally just depends on what your what's it called are your symptoms. Like for me,
Mhm.
I should not eat sugar because that triggers my hypoglycemia. And people will go, well, that's your bariatric stuff. I'm like, no, this has been happening my whole adult life. We didn't know why. Now I do know why. And I should not, if I eat sugar or if I go to McDonald's, which I love to do to get my Diet Cokes, I'll get a Diet Coke and fries. And for some reason, the fried with the caffeine, oh, because people with dysautonomia tend to be a little more sensitive to caffeine,
Yeah.
which, oh my word, it is really bad. But I love caffeine, and then I drink too much, and then I'm like sitting here and my heart's pounding and I can't think, and I just do it anyway. But anyway, my hypoglycemia gets triggered by caffeine with what's it called? Fries, which I don't do anymore because my doctor was like, hey, do you think you could not do that?
behavior modification. Don't do it.
And I was like, oh no, I never thought of not eating fries. Okay, but like that ends up being what is. You just have to identify what causes these problems. And the sitting up one, that is one of the biggest ones because it is hard.
Well, and for you, did you kind of trial and error it on the food? Because I know you mentioned the bariatric surgery, but did you kind of trial and error? Did they actually send you to a dietitian that you could work with who maybe had some good thoughts and tips?
I just kind of did it myself. I mean, my sister's a dietitian.
Okay.
And I have had so many bariatric dietitians now, and we disagree on my diet. So,
Well,
but
and
like,
it's one of those things where I think you have to find the right person and the right experience because again, and not to bash a dietitian or anything, it's all medical professionals. People have this I'm the one who knows the things and stuff, and you need to do what I say. And we talk about this with SLPs. There's something called informed consent and shared decision making.
well, and the thing with like diet too is because dysautonomia is so, I know I keep saying it's random. It is random. There are triggers, but sometimes weird stuff just happens. And food affects like every single person differently.
Yeah.
So like I love whole grains now because they make me feel good. They make me poop like a champ, and they help my blood sugar quite a lot. But
Hmm.
someone else, and even then, and studies show you should go to like a fiber heavy diet to help with manages. But some people that just does not work. It's literally the opposite.
Hmm.
And so it's really listening to someone and whatever theirs are, their triggers, their symptoms, and trying to really individualize it, which is all of healthcare. But like I feel dysautonomia because it's so many different causes and especially because it's affecting a lot of women. And we know that research in women don't really historically end well, I mean, or
Yeah.
even get started. So
There's work to do there.
not by me.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Julie, for sharing your story. Also, doing a really great job of relating it to diagnosis for our patients because that's kind of what I think our whole goal was to not only share your symptoms and your story, but to explain to people how this makes you think about things differently when it comes to patient care and how we can be more empathetic and understanding to our patients because really that's what it's all about.
And I mean, yeah, being chronically ill is beyond. And I mean, I'm not, I do identify as disabled now, but I am not disabled in a way that I can't work, I can't live the majority of my life. But being chronically ill has really helped me be so much of a better clinician. It's embarrassing to me personally how much better I am now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why could I not tap into that before? And
Hmm.
until you go through it, until you experience all of this, I just don't feel you understand as well. So all of you need to get a chronic disease, go through all this garbage, and you too shall be as excellent as me.
Thanks, Louise. Well, I think your sense of humor is great, and it definitely, I think, helps you survive too, because it's you got to have a bright spot in your day when you're dealing with what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, again, thank you for being here, um, and hopefully we'll get to see you again in the future. Next time I'm in Seattle, I don't know when that'll be, but I'll have to pop in and say hi to you and my other friend. I
Now
have
that
two
I know you were there and offended me, what?
No, I have two friends that live there that are SLPs, so that's cool. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for being with us. And just as a reminder, if you've joined us for the live episode and your state license requires live CEUs, be sure to complete all course modules, including the one that says complete course before the end of the day on your speech therapy PD account. Julie, have a great evening. Great to see you. And thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Don't get Sjogren's.